Well, greetings everyone. Despite all the other content you'll find on my channel, you might be surprised to know I've never actually looked at a camera from PTZ Optics, which is one of the dominant PTZ manufacturers out there. And there's a reason for that. Basically because PTZ Optics cameras demand a price that I don't think quite honestly they deserve. You can find similar, if not frankly the exact same cameras at a much lower price point. In fact, the video that launched this whole channel was me reviewing a off-branded version of a PTZ Optics camera that was being offered for half the price that turned out to be a perfectly fine camera. Now, today, we're actually going to break that streak because recently I was helping out an individual who had a very particular need around some live streaming. And in my investigations, I discovered that PTZ Optics actually offered a type of camera that I have not looked at yet. And it's this guy right here. This is their ePTZ camera. And today, we're going to take a look. All right, well, here we go. This is exactly how it came out of the box with an included instruction manual and just in this bag. So we're going to open it up and take a look to see what we get. Now, first thing is the camera itself, and you'll notice something. As I said, this is what they call their ePTZ camera, but clearly this does not move, right? It does not have a movable part in it that you would expect to see. This is clearly designed to be a fixed point camera. So we will get to how that works in a minute, but just quick overviewing of what you get. You get a couple of different standard mountings, holes that you would find on anything, so any of your normal camera mounts should work. You've got them on actually both sides of the camera, which is convenient. So if you're actually doing like a ceiling mount, you don't actually have to turn the camera upside down to do that. You can still have the camera right side up and mount it at the ceiling, or a bottom mounts right there as well. All right, on the back, a lot of the stuff that you would expect to see. You've got your network port right there, which of course is also Ethernet, but also powers PoE. You have dual SDI out, which is convenient for you, depending on how many places you need to receive the signal from it. You also have a input for video or power, and then a standard USB. Now, what do you notice is missing? Well, there's no HDMI. This really kind of is something that grew out of their kind of professional and also their security camera range, which is why you see the SDI, which is pretty standard for security cameras because they need that long distance that SDI provides. So you don't have HDMI. If you want HDMI, you're going to have to use an SDI to HDMI converter, which are pretty cheap and basic, and I've talked about them before on the channel. Otherwise, the only other thing is you have is the lens on the front. Now, the other thing that you can probably notice right here is, one, it's a kind of small opening on the actual lens itself, and clearly it does not move. And what that means is you're not getting any optical zoom with this camera. Optical zoom is where the camera actually rearranges its lenses and makes them farther apart or closer together in order to provide the zoom, which means you're still getting full quality on the image sensor. If you have a normal camera, when you zoom in, you'll notice that the lens actually extends out of the camera and then back in. On a PTZ, that all happens internally in the kind of barrel-shaped thing on top. This does not have this, so you're not going to get any optical zoom with this. You're just going to get digital zoom. All right, so this took a minute, but let me tell you how I went ahead and got this set up. So I did set up the PTZ Optics camera here. I am using this little injector off of the PoE Plus because I wanted to try how that worked. That seems to be working. Got the SDI out, traveling to this USB capture that is then connected to my computer, and you are seeing the feed from actually not the USB capture, even though I did test that and that works fine, but you're actually seeing the feed from its NDI feed because I wanted to test that too. So this is what you're seeing in the bottom corner is the NDI feed from the NDI Studio app that you can get free from NDI. I also added it as a source to my Focomo controller here. Set up pretty easy, added it as an OnViv. OnViv was turned on by default with this guy, which is nice. And it was able to connect with the standard authentication of admin and admin. Now, the PTZ Optics camera does shift with that really annoying setting that I do not like, where it sets up with some default random IP address of 192.168.100. something. And then you got to fiddle with your own network settings on your computer in order to get everything to work. I don't really like that. I did notice in the instructions, there's actually a small joystick. You may have seen it when we were looking at the back of the camera. There's a small joystick right here. If you hold it to the left for 5 seconds, it will actually go to DHCP mode and then take a IP address through DHCP like everything else on the planet does. And so I did that. That worked great. And then when it booted up, I noticed on the screen, it told me what the IP address it got was, which is also great. I wasn't sure if this was going to have an on-screen menu, and it doesn't have an on-screen menu because, of course, there's really isn't any way to control it without a remote, but it will tell you what its IP address is, which is nice. So here we go. I got it all set up here, which is pretty exciting. And as you can see, if I go through, I can use my controller to do some basic controls of it. So I can zoom in, I can zoom out. Now here I am fully zoomed out, and I tried to go left and right. Initially nothing happened, and I was like, oh gosh, this doesn't work, oh no. Then I realized that because it doesn't actually move, what it's doing when it's doing its PTZ thing is it's basically taking the image that it's coming in through the image sensor and basically moving around within that image. So if you're fully zoomed out, there's nowhere to move. So in order to get it to move, you first have to zoom it in some, and then it will move across the screen, like you would pretty much expect. Though the camera itself, as you can see, is not physically moving because that's not what it does. Really, it's just taking that big wide shot that it's taking from the camera and then zooming into part of it and then moving that zoomed portion around. So you need to understand that limitation. So as you can see, when you back up and zoom out, you'll notice it jogged a little bit to the left and a little bit down because I had zoomed into that portion and it's got to reset to perfectly center. All right, so you can control it through the controller. You can also control it through NDI controls as well, which is a nice little feature. So you can, well, first we got to zoom in, right? Got to zoom in. And then we can go over here and we can go over there. And what that's really handy for is if you're going to plug this in through OBS or something, you can script like commands for PTZ commands into OBS. So as long as it can accept those, that's really handy. I think I did set up a couple of presets. Yep, preset 1 and preset 2. If you notice, those presets moved very, very quickly because it's not physically moving. So there's no transition shot or anything like that. It's just boom, boom, one to the other. That is actually a nifty feature and an advantage of a setup like this. All right, so the PTZ Optics ePTZ, what do I think? Well, I think it sort of does what it says. I don't know that the limitations of its lenses and its broadcast quality and stuff is something I would want to use for something that would say a bigger production, something where you really care about stuff like that. And you probably need a particular environment to use it in versus, you know, just spending the extra couple $100 to get an actual full traditional PTZ camera with all the extra benefits that comes with, like an HDMI out and optical zoom and all those sorts of things. The person that I was actually researching this for, though, did have a particular use case in mind. They wanted to do some live streaming, but what they wanted to stream were actually some endangered animals. And in order to do it, the camera was going to have to be in something, was in the enclosure with the animals, and they were a little concerned that the movement of the camera may be distracting to the animals themselves, and that even the noise of it moving, even though PTZ cameras don't make much noise, that the noise of them moving, especially things with really sensitive hearing, that could be a concern as well, which is what set me down this little bunny trail in the first place. So in that regard, I think something like this could work. Again, as long as you've got plenty of light, so you know the low light quality isn't such a big concern. It's got a nice hardy enclosure on it, a lot of mounting options, so that's good. And it doesn't cost a whole ton at $500. That's not nothing, but in the world of PTZ cameras, it's actually pretty cheap, especially one that's NDI capable. So that's pretty nice. The fact that you can install it with just a single cable run. So again, in that very specific example, only having to run one cable into the enclosure, that may be an advantage too. So for those sorts of reasons and those kind of very specific scenarios, I could see where it would be helpful. If you're looking for something a little more advanced for, live streaming a worship service or meetings or performances or something like that, I would definitely say go for a full PTZ. See some of my other reviews. You'll find something in there that will work a whole lot better. But that is the PTZ Optic ePTZ. It does what it says. If you are interested in it, there are some affiliated links below that really helps support this channel. And until I see you again, I hope you have a great day. Hey everybody, if you found that video helpful, please hit like and subscribe, and also check the video description for links to any products you've seen in today's videos. Doing that really helps support this channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment with any questions that you may have. A lot of the content I do is based directly on the questions and the feedback you give, so keep that coming and I will keep making them. Thank you.